time, there's still tons of companies that spend an inordinate amount of time basically just managing a stack of paper, managing a stack of labels or pick sheets or what have you.
It may be surprising to hear that despite the vast technological advances in nearly every sector over the past 20 years, tens of thousands of warehouses still operate on paper. Seth Patin, the founder and CEO of LogistiVIEW, recognized the inefficiencies and saw an opportunity. His solution is a product that combines virtual reality with artificial intelligence, guiding warehouse workers with real-time information about where they should be, what they should be doing, and where they should go next. In this edition of UpTech Report, Seth talks about how he started the company and some of the many adjustments he's had to make along the way. Seth, I'm excited to talk with you today and dig in more to LogistiVIEW and the problem that you're uniquely solving. To begin, in a very brief 5 seconds, what would you say that you exist to solve? What are you solving?
It's really simple. Warehouses are many times stuck in the past, and we are bringing the modern mobility revolution, which started with consumers, in 2007 and has rapidly progressed over the last decade. We're taking that into a warehouse and connecting the warehouse with itself, really, which is an interesting process.
Connecting the warehouse with itself. As you said, they're outdated and bringing consumer tech into it. I love it. So digging in a little bit deeper, give me an analogy of a problem that you've seen in warehouses today. They're like, wow, no, this could totally be solved.
Well, one of the most obvious problems is just inefficient work distribution and inefficient work execution. One of the companies that LogistiVIEW works with, it basically had a system where it was all done on paper. So at the beginning of the day, and then I saw your eyes get big. That's totally normal. That is absolutely normal. There are tens of thousands of companies today that still do everything in their warehouse on paper. And so, there's other companies that do, technology-enabled, logistics as well. So it's certainly not like everyone does that. But at the same time, there's still tons of companies that spend an inordinate amount of time basically just managing a stack of paper, managing a stack of labels or pick sheets or what have you, and converting that all to a digital platform and helping sort all of the transactions into a logical travel sequence, so they're not walking back and forth all over the place. Helping give them good information so that they know the right thing to do. Our system answers 3 basic questions, that every frontline worker asks over and over and over again. Am I in the right place? Do I have the right stuff? And what do I do next? If you can answer that with simple modern mobility and a little bit of AI around the process, then you can absolutely transform how a warehouse operates. And that's what we do.
So if anything, people are going to be paying more attention to their warehouses and be able to modernize it to ship in new and different ways. But I appreciate your point that the innovation game is usually focused on where revenue can be generated, not where costs can be reduced necessarily. So let's dig in a bit more about then, how did this begin? The company began, and what's kind of that journey, and how many customers do you have today?
So our customer base, we have, we're still pretty small. We have 5 companies live in production at a total of 8 sites. We have about 25 companies in pilot stages at various pilot stages. I started the company in 2014, late 2014. It actually came out of an R&D project. I started LogistiVIEW in 2014, I should clarify. It came out of an R&D project that we did at Exalogics to test this idea that I had many years ago. It initially started on Google Glass, and that was not the right answer. Let's just put it that way. The software, however, the idea showed a ton of promise. And so that was when, following the completion of that, we started the company in 2014, spent about 3 or 4, 3.5 years in R&D, released the product in early 2017, kind of MVP. Reid Hoffman says, if you're not embarrassed by your MVP, you didn't release soon enough. I released in good time. And what we found, I was convinced the market was really ready, or was going to be ready in 2017. And it just proved that really wasn't the case. There was That human factor I was talking about, the hey, we like doing things the way we've been doing things because that's comfortable. You start introducing really new technology, and there's a barrier to overcome there. There's a great book called Crossing the Chasm that is really relevant in this particular type of technology, because there's a few companies that will buy based off of the innovation, but the reality is, especially in logistics where it's all a cost center, it's going to be about pragmatism. And so I think we're just now beginning to get to that point where big companies are buying our software for pragmatic reasons, and not because you've got the innovation visionary getting a R&D budget.
What are the kind of the base layer that you've got established and you're providing as far as the technology there, and then the next layer that you're working on next?
So the base layer, LogistiVIEW started off as what we call the human interface platform, human experience platform. And so the concept there was, Telnet is a really terrible way to communicate with a person. It worked for 40 years. It's our 50 years almost now. And sadly, it's still incredibly common because the majority of the warehouses that don't run paper run Telnet. And so that is the bar. That's the bar that the industry is used to. And so our obligation basically was to find a way to do that better, because especially if you consider, by and large, warehouse workers are considered, they're considered to be in many ways like difficult or uneducated or anything, but that's a terrible characterization. They're actually incredibly smart, and they really resent the terrible systems that they have to use. And when when they don't have a good system, it actually impacts their job satisfaction. That's one of the reasons why, especially with unemployment as low as it was pre-pandemic, it was hard to keep warehouse workers in one place unless you had really good technology. The other angle of it is they all want to be more efficient. I mean, they're just like we have our objectives, like the things that make us tick. A typical frontline worker, one of the things that makes them tick is knowing they did something really well. That's actually that's a point of pride. And when they know the system is holding them back, they get so angry at the computer. And so I observed that over nearly 20 years in implementing warehouse management software, and said, if we do it a better way, if we give them better instructions, if the technology feels more native, because let's be honest, the warehouse worker is coming into the building with a smartphone in their back pocket. They are not computer illiterate, like that, not at all. So a frontline worker lives their entire life just as connected as a tech worker most of the time. They have a smartphone, they have Apple TVs, they have Rokus, they have Netflix. I mean, all the stuff we have, they have.
It's like we're entering a phase where the average consumer is more tech advanced than the business environment they're going into.
Absolutely.
And there's a disconnect.
Well, and tech workers, a tech worker gets to say, well, if you want to keep me, you have to give me a $4,000 crazy laptop and give me 3 monitors and all this other stuff. Meanwhile, the warehouse worker walks in and goes, wait a minute, you've got to be kidding me. This is a 4.5 pound brick that I have to carry around, and it has 20 lines of green text on it. You guys have to be able to do better. And so that was really where, in observing that problem, that's where we started.
So looking forward from here, what's kind of the roadmap in the near future that you're going to continue to develop? Sounds like maybe that AI. And then what's the long term, like 5-10 years, that you see in the roadmap?
I think the most powerful technology for a warehouse would be a solution that's capable of requiring very little planning to get it up and running, but then is subsequently capable of learning from all of the tasks that it assigns, and all of the routes that it assigns, and all of the workers that it assigns those routes to, including robots or AI components. So you've got the digital workforce, which includes humans, robots, and artificial intelligence agents. You bring that all together, and you build a system that where if it's done right, the time to install and the amount of configuration required is actually lower than it's ever been in history. In fact, you can set up a few basic things, maybe even send out a few robots or a few people, to run some computer vision based machine learning algorithms to interact with sensors, figure out where things are. And then now the system is set and it has kind of the baseline paths. Then be able to learn from constant testing of new paths and new task assignments and new routings, to the point where when you go live on this, on the first day you have the system live, it's the worst, least efficient day that you've ever had or that you'll ever have on the system. And every single day, that system will get a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better, to the point where, a year in or 2 years in, you've fine-tuned and tweaked that operational process so substantially that the people who are running the operation don't fully understand why the system is making the decisions it's making, because the system has literally learned itself how to optimize that particular business, that particular warehouse, that particular physical layout. And obviously, if you introduce change, it then needs to be able to learn from that change.
For this, the kind of next steps of where you guys are going, are you focusing? Is there different types of warehouses, or your software applies to all different categories of warehouses and usage?
It pretty much applies to any warehouse. I mean, we have actually the industry vertical or the industry vertical where we're kind of having the most success is the third-party logistics provider, which is basically the anything warehouse. So the 3PL providers like our solution because it's SaaS based, and because it can be paid for on an OpEx budget instead of a CapEx budget. And so if you take a look at a typical contract logistics provider, the contract is a 3 to 5 year, maybe 7 year if you're lucky, and the margins aren't exceptionally high. So they don't have the money to go and buy $10 million worth of conveyors and just automate the heck out of this warehouse. They need something that's very flexible, and that's where so 3PL is the place we're actually getting the most interest. But that's not because of the capabilities of the system as much as it is because of the business model.
Being a SaaS model where you said it's not a capital cost, it's operational, and then they can apply it.
And it's also a consume as you go. So if you have there's no fixed there's no flat fee to have the system. It's based on the number of users or the number of devices that are connected. So you get the value. Yeah, you get the value as you grow. Not you don't have to try and put this heavy cost over a small number of people. It's very plausible to roll out LogistiVIEW for a 5-person warehouse, and we've done that.
Wow, that's impressive. So then I'll ask, what's a good first step for people to take? Where can they go to learn more?
Well, there's a lot of places you can go to learn more. I think the best place to go to learn more is to go to logistiview.com or exalogics.com. You'll get some good starter information there. I think if you really want to learn more, the best way to do it is by calling and talking to us, because a lot of times what I find is a lot of folks in our business like the idea of automation. They like the idea of assisted vision picking and things like that. All of that is really, it's a powerful concept, but the question, the deeper question of how do I get it all to work together? How do I integrate it with all the other systems I already have? How do I make my green screen system work with this next gen, AI and computer vision system? We actually have spent a lot of time and a lot of our roadmap over the past couple of years making that integration as painless as possible. And so a lot of folks could probably share their exact layout, and we could tell them how it actually isn't probably as bad as they might think it would be.
Be sure to check out the second part of my conversation with Seth, in which he discusses how funding his own startup has been both a challenge and a motivating force.